Hello, and welcome to another installment of I'm Fat and I Know Very Little About My Guns. Here's a recent acquisition. This is a Stevens model 520-30 trench gun. In theory, the jury is out on this one. These are a highly, let's say, replicated firearm, because there literally were, millions of these made that would cost like $125, and very few of the World War II trench guns or riot guns that were made that would fetch like $1,000. So obviously, there's going to be a lot of people that would go, what exactly do I have to do to this $125 gun to fool someone? So since there's a lot of that going on, I got this one from a guy that's pretty reputable. I trusted him. But, with these things, you never really know. There's so much foolery going on that, unless you're an expert, you're really not going to know what you're getting. Could be years later. You run into someone that really knows what they're doing with these and points out the things that would give you question marks. Now, with this, what I had going for me was that the numbers on the receiver and the barrel match, and it does have the proper markings. It has the P's, it has the flaming bombs, both on the barrel and on the receiver. See if I can get a little closer and you can actually see those. There's the one up here on the barrel, and there's the one on the receiver. And it has the U.S. marking on it over there that would designate military use. And a couple other things I read on some forums where the sling swivels were put into a notch that looks like this. I mean, it wouldn't really take a master craftsman to cut a notch like that in a gun to fool a guy like me, because I really wouldn't know. I'm just like, yeah, there's a notch, yeah, there's a notch. I mean, what do I know? You know what I mean? Like I said, I kind of, have a lot of, there's a lot of clues as to the fact that this one might actually be, legitimate. But then there are a couple of other odd things that I'm finding. I had read somewhere that if you see evidence of a bead having been covered up or something on the barrel itself, because this piece right here is the bayonet attachment slash heat guard here on the top of the barrel, is all one piece that slides on. These are available. I looked on eBay. They're there. There's probably an aftermarket company specifically that makes these. That's like for reproduction purposes only. Meanwhile, there's people trying to use these types of things to pass these off. I'm not quite sure that this one is original. I don't know. It doesn't really match the patina of the rest of the gun. The whole shotgun has a certain kind of look of age, and the one thing that doesn't really look that way would be this heat guard. So I'm not really sure. It does use the U.S. caliber 30 model rifle of 1917, that whole long designation, but it's basically the 1917 bayonet it uses, which is a pain in the neck because that one's an expensive one. It's not like I got like $5,000 bayonets laying here. Of course, it could be one of those that slips right on. It's got to be the 1917. Since I don't own a 1917, I was always like, well, I'll never have to look for one of those bayonets. Wrong. Now you have to look for one. And it's interesting how they use this mock-up thing right here as if it's the barrel, to slip on. The bayonet slips on as if that's the barrel, because obviously it's not going to go over a 12-gauge barrel. So that's kind of interesting. Now, if you see the bead is on the heat shield, but I do see evidence. Originally, I didn't think I saw it, but I do see evidence. It's kind of hard to see from the outside. No, and it's shining. You're not really going to see it, but on the inside, let's see if I can get a look so I can just show you what I was seeing. Let's see if that's possible. On the inside here, up on the top, you see that? See that dot right up there? I'll touch it with the light. Right up there. See that dot? Yeah, you can see that. There you go. That is evidence of a bead having been on the barrel and have been milled off. So this having been milled off, so this heat shield would slide on. Now, from what I read, they go, well, that was a riot, maybe a riot gun that was turned, because the barrel is proof marked. And it's also matched serial number to the receiver. So you're like, well, how could that be? Could it really have been a riot gun? And I mean, who knows? I mean, I saw somebody post that if you see evidence of the bead, it shows that it's not a true trench gun. I mean, who knows back then that, they had to throw some of these together for war. Maybe Stevens themselves ground off a bead off of a barrel and put a heat shield on it and made it a trench gun. Who knows? I mean, I certainly don't know. I don't think, I think you'd really have to go to some major firearms historians to really get these answers. I don't think with these things that went to war back in the 40s, late 30s, early 40s, I really don't think that anybody really, that any, set in stone things happened. I think there's a lot of, there was a lot of play for things that could have gone on. Who knows? But for me, for the most part, it, it seems legit. It feels legit. And it's a Browning design. And John Browning, he's like my firearms hero. This guy was amazing. And I'm going to show you, when I first, acquired this thing, I'm like, wow, it looks like a lot like my A5. That's interesting. I guess that's why they had to use some John Brown patents. That's where the design comes from. It's just like, it's shaped like it. Hey, it looks like an A5. Got to give John Browning, the patent money for, got to pay for the rights to that humpback shape. It's certainly more than that. It's certainly more than that. Being that I have an A5, I was able to do the comparisons, and I'm going to show you some of the things right now that are interesting. As far as the history goes to this thing, I've only started I'm like, if the history of this thing is like a dictionary, I'm on the preface. I don't know really much about them. I'm just learning, you know what I mean? So, but what I can show you is just what I've observed from getting one and actually holding it in my hands and looking at it. First of all, this receiver is a drop forged steel. This is no joke. This receiver, this thing originally, people would look at this and say like, hey, you better not fire modern 12 gauge ammo through that. You better be careful what you put through it. You might blow it up or whatever. Let me tell you, I got some faith in John Browning's design, because this thing is amazing. This thing feels so solid. This thing has a locking lug like John Browning's lever guns, like the 1886, like those types of lever guns. Look at that locking lug that pops up in there. This thing is no joke. That's like a solid block of steel coming up into this drop forged receiver here. That is a solid lockup. I mean, I would have absolutely no fear. Of course, I haven't done it yet. Be posting another video next week with half of my chin missing and this thing in pieces, going like, well, watch out with those trench guns. But I doubt it. I mean, it just seems to me like it's so solid. I would have absolutely no problem with taking this thing to the range and going off, because it's just as solid as the day it was made. It feels, And some interesting things about it are it has a what they call a slam fire feature. Whereas if you pull the trigger, you fire around, you keep the trigger pulled, you cycle the action, right? You eject the shell, and as you're closing, the lifter's going to come up, feed you the next shell. Now check this out. I'm never moving my finger here. I'm just keeping my finger on the trigger. And as it closes, listen up. See that? It actually drops the hammer again. And then, of course, without moving your finger, you'll be able to eject that shell. And as you close, bang. So this is the feature of like how it gets the moniker for trench gun, because you're in your trench and your trench is getting overrun, and I don't know if this thing hangs on a wall or if it's just like around for anybody to grab, or if there's just a special guy that that this is his, this is his job. But let me tell you, your trench starts getting overrun. You got 5 shells in this tube and 1 in this chamber. That double-aught buck, 9 .30 caliber balls in each shell. You'll definitely clear a trench. I mean, you'll do some serious damage with this thing. Being that you don't even have to pump and pull. You just pump as fast as you can. Slam this pump home. You're going to be blasting rounds, and obviously, your accuracy with that type of movement is going to go down. But at that point, you're certainly getting overrun. Where I'm talking about, you're worried about getting bayoneted. This thing even has the provision for a bayonet, because of its close quarters, usage. And, this thing saw use all through World War II up to Vietnam. There's pictures of guys in Vietnam carrying these things. So, they definitely did the job. You know what I'm saying? And even old, it's not like they were making them around Vietnam. They were just reusing these same old ones, and they were doing just fine. So I actually can't wait to get out there and fire it. I might actually just go and do some trap shooting with it. But let me just quickly show you a couple of things. This is what I noticed. I realized that there's more of a comparison than just the humpback shape to the Browning A5. And let's see if I can show you exactly what I'm talking about. I'm going to throw a bore light in here so that hopefully, let me clip it on. Alright, hopefully we're able to see exactly what it is I'm talking about. Now, if you notice, this gun, let me close the bolt a little bit and get the elevator out of the way. This gun has dual extractors. You could see them both there attached to the bolt. There's one obviously right here, and the other one in the back there. And you can see that, oh, what happened to my bore light? You can see that the extractor slides between 2 ejector pieces, you see? And let me tell you, that ejector has ejected 8 billion rounds because it looks like it's been through the mill. But luckily, you could see way up here, where my middle finger is right there, you could see the head of a screw, or the bottom of a screw. And that obviously correlates to this screw right here. It's just one screw you unscrew, and you take that little plate out of there and just replace it with another one. I mean, I know Numberich has it. I've seen them there. They're like $4. And it's like, if you ever needed it, it's there. But this one works, but it looks like it's ejected 8 billion rounds. But you could see how positive, this is what John Browning was known for. That not only are there 2 extractors, one on either side of that bolt, but even when it goes through the ejector isn't just a pin that could break or a little piece. I've seen, ejectors that are just like one little piece of metal sticking out where it could move because it's like, it could be flexed back and forth because of its position, and that's what would eventually get it to break. This thing is like screwed directly to the side of the receiver, and it's 2 pieces to split up the force or the wear between 2 pieces. And even if one should fail, like let's say that top one should break off or wear out, you still have the bottom one. You would still have time to look at it and say like, oh, look at that, that's worn, I need another one. But it would still work because you would actually have 2 pieces. And the way that extractor slides between them like that, that's John Browning right there. That's John Browning. And in comparison, also this locking lug on the top, that's all John Browning right there. Now in comparison, let's bust out the A5 here, which is gorgeous, of course. This is going to look awfully similar. Here we have two extractors. There they are, looking exactly the same. And lo and behold, right there in the back, you can see it. there is the same ejector, 2 pieces with the extractor sliding through the center, and the two extractors also, dual extractors, one on either side of the bolt. There they are. This is like identical, you know what I mean, to in design, you know. That's all John Browning. So you hear like, oh, John Browning patents or John Browning designed that. John Browning didn't just say like, oh, you want it shaped like a hump? Yeah, okay, give me $10,000, shape it like a hump. I don't care. No, John Browning's influence goes well into the operation. Now, with 2 extractors, with one on either side of that shell, would mean in wartime you could conceivably break one. I'm not saying it's going to function perfectly with one broken, but it'll probably work. But you'll probably just notice something's wrong, or you'd see it, or you'd be like, oh, look at that, there's an extractor missing. I guarantee you it's going to work with either or missing. It's still going to function. I guarantee you. And even that has to be the original ejector inside of this thing. I mean, it just has to be. And like I said, it looks like it's ejected freaking 20,000 rounds, but it looks like it'll do maybe another 10,000 before it needs to be replaced. But that's the genius of John Browning. That's where his designs, you know, when somebody wants to use his design or buys something from him, you know, this is what they're using, you know. So that's it. That's the trench gun. If anybody's got any you know, insight into like how I could determine more if these things are real, I've heard that the serial numbers from the 40,000 to the 60,000 range put them in trench gun territory, and this thing is in the 47,000 group. So, you know, this is why when I first saw it, everything seemed to match up to me. It was like, yeah, the serial number is in the right realm. You know, sometimes you go to buy something, you got like 20 minutes, half an hour to go sit down and knock around on Google and see what you could find. Look at some YouTube videos, look at some information. You just try to just bounce around. You get a nice, good, solid Wi-Fi connection somewhere where you could just sit and just pour over stuff to just, you know, like, what is the bullshit factor of this person that's talking to me? This is the coolest thing about smartphones, especially when it comes to stuff like this, is that, you know, if you went somewhere, you went to a gun show, or you're out there and you're at a gun store or something, and you have the opportunity to buy something, you would always just kind of have to wing it. You'd have to just go with the knowledge that's in your head. But these smartphones are really cool in a way for collectors or for this type of thing, because, you know, you could talk to somebody and you're there and you maybe have a chance to go like, hey, you know what, I think we got a deal, but yeah, I need to go to the bathroom. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, you could just spend a few minutes, just jump right online and just see, you know, what is this guy telling me? Is this true? Is that true? You know, and you just try to do like a research crunch really quick to really see, you know, of course, I'm talking about if you don't have an opportunity to like come back the next day, you know, if it's just you're right there and you have an opportunity to make a deal, but you're just not sure. And just me poking around, I found that the serial number was in the right range. The markings that I was looking for were there. And it looked complete. Like, everything about it just looked right. You know what I mean? The only thing that bothered me was just that this heat shield just did not have the same patina as the rest of the gun. It just did not look as old. You know what I mean? So I said, well, there's a chance, I guess, maybe it could have been replaced. You know what I mean? Maybe this had gotten rusty. Maybe, who knows? You know what I mean? But then now, after a little bit more research and just and finding online about this whole story, I read about this, the bead on the barrel. I do see evidence of a bead on the barrel. And being that I see that, and the combination of that and that this heat shield doesn't really look as period as the rest of the gun, leads me to believe that there's a possibility that it never came with a heat shield, which would mean that, I guess, potentially it was a riot gun or whatever that still had the military markings but wasn't a true trench gun with the heat shield. I mean, and then I'd read that the riot guns, they were actually less of those made, so they're actually more, they're worth more. But I think the desirability, though, what people really wanted was the trench guns with the heat shield and the bayonet. You know what I mean? That's more like what people wanted. So of course that would be if somebody had a riot gun and they were gonna try to get the most amount of money for it, they're gonna go for and I'm not necessarily saying the guy I bought it from. It could have been the guy that he bought it from. You know what I mean? It could have been years ago. It could have been in the 50s, in the 60s that somebody made these changes. I mean, who knows? But like I said, there's always the chance that Stevens themselves use the barrel like that. If they're pumping stuff out and they need guns for the war effort and they have to make some of these and they're like, oh, they're short on barrels, they could be like, yeah, well, give me some of those. We'll just mill that off and we'll just use those. Who knows? I mean, but if you have some insight, I'd really love to see in the comments, what you think. And other than that, that's the Stevens Model 520-30. A nice, solid, Browning-designed World War II shotgun. And you have a good one.